Imagine you get a direct promotion from the CEO.
Okay.
Like you are handed the keys to the entire company, you're given unlimited resources, and you are sent out on this massive mission to secure the future of the whole organization.
Right. High stakes.
Totally. And on your very first night of travel, you check into your hotel room, you're getting ready for bed, and suddenly the door bursts open. And it's that same CEO.
The one who just promoted you.
Yes! The one who just promoted you steps into the room, and he's there to assassinate you.
Wow. That's wild.
It's terrifying. But welcome to Reformed Thinking. We are so thrilled to have you with us today.
Glad you're tuning in.
Because today, you are about to look at an ancient text that completely shatters modern, comfortable, seeker-sensitive views of the divine.
It really does. It just tears that whole idea down.
It does. The sources we're opening today tackle this crazy historical paradox from the book of Exodus, specifically chapter 4, verses 24 through 26.
Yeah, and the premise here gives you absolute narrative whiplash.
Oh, for sure.
Think about the setup for a second. Moses, this hand-picked deliverer of Israel, has literally just spoken to God at the burning bush.
Right.
He's got miraculous signs. He is heading to Egypt to free his people. But on the way, they stop for the night, and the very God who commissioned him suddenly shows up with lethal intent to kill him.
It sounds like a thriller, like a horror movie almost.
It really does. But that is the precise scenario we are looking at in the text today.
Yeah.
The transition is just jarring. And that is by design.
Yeah.
Our goal in this deep dive is to unpack the grammatical, historical, and theological gravity of this specific encounter.
At the lodging place, yeah.
Right. We want to look at the sources and demonstrate why divine mission never excuses personal obedience. The authors we're reading make a compelling case that God will not utilize an unholy instrument to shepherd an obedient nation.
Which is such a heady thought.
It is. The living God is not some passive spectator of human life. He demands absolute conformity to his revealed decrees from those who bear his name.
Yeah, and I want to start by looking at the physical and temporal coordinates of this event because, well, this doesn't happen in a vacuum.
Right. Context is everything.
It really is.
Yeah.
Based on the sources, we are looking at the year 1446 BC.
Okay.
So this puts us in the late 18th dynasty of Egypt, likely under the reign of Pharaoh Amenhotep II.
Let's paint a picture for everyone of what Moses is actually walking into.
Please do.
So Egypt at this time is a massive global superpower.
Huge.
They have these massive chariot armies, sprawling temple complexes, a highly advanced administrative state, and Moses is traveling from the pastoral obscurity of Midian toward the eastern delta of Egypt.
And his background is so unique.
Yeah, he spent 40 years in the royal courts, then 40 years hiding in the desert, and now he is making this massive geographical shift right back into the lion's den.
And he's doing it with what? A donkey, his wife, his sons, and a wooden staff.
It's absurd when you really think about it.
It is, but we have to visualize the physical location of this specific encounter on the road.
Yeah, the text identifies the location as a lodging place.
Right.
The Hebrew word used here is malon.
Malone, okay.
Now, when you hear lodging place, you might think of a modern hotel or, I don't know, a quaint bed and breakfast.
All right, like a Holiday Inn off the highway?
Yeah, but a malon is nothing like that. It is a primitive caravanserai along the ancient arid trade routes.
So pretty rough.
Oh, incredibly rough. These routes connected the region of Midian, which sits east of the Gulf of Aqaba, with the heavily fortified borders of Egypt.
Wow.
A caravanserai was usually just a rough enclosure, maybe a stone wall built near a well, just designed to give merchants and travelers a basic perimeter to park their animals.
At an isolated, vulnerable spot.
Very vulnerable. You are exposed to the elements, you're exposed to bandits. And, as Moses is about to find out, you are exposed to the unshielded holiness of God.
Right. And if you're listening right now, you might be asking, well, what triggered this sudden threat?
Yeah, it seems to come out of nowhere.
It does. But the sources pinpoint the core issue as a clash between two completely different cultures.
Okay, let's unpack that.
We are looking at a collision between the Abrahamic mandate and Midianite custom.
Oh.
To understand this, we have to flip back in the sources to Genesis chapter 17. Under that specific covenant, physical circumcision on the 8th day of a male's life is the absolute legal boundary.
Right, it's non-negotiable.
Totally non-negotiable.
Yeah.
To neglect it means being cut off from the people. It's a hard term of the contract.
But Moses has been living in Midian for 4 decades at this point.
Yeah, 40 years is a long time.
It is. Now, the Midianites were actually descended from Abraham through his later wife, Keturah. But they had drifted over the
Your
centuries.
cultural practices shifted, right?
Yeah, they did. They delayed circumcision until puberty or marriage. They treated it as a rite of passage into adulthood, rather than an instant sign of covenant inclusion.
So it's a totally different theological framework for them.
Precisely. That cultural drift creates the structural crisis of this narrative. Because the physical sign of circumcision in Genesis 17 was a visible boundary-marking identifier for ethnic national Israel.
It signified total separation from pagan nations.
Right. It was not a suggestion. It was the mechanism by which a person was legally recognized as part of God's protected people.
And then there's Zipporah.
Yeah, Zipporah, Midianite wife of Moses. She clearly possessed a strong cultural aversion to cutting an infant's flesh on the 8th day.
Which, from her perspective, makes sense.
Yeah, to her, this practice would have seemed barbaric, or just entirely unnecessary based on her own upbringing.
Right. And Moses yielded to her domestic preference.
He did. He allowed a critical violation of covenant law to persist within his own immediate household.
So his younger son, Gershom, remained uncircumcised.
Yeah, Moses prioritized the peace of his marital tent over the explicit command of the God who spoke from the burning bush.
Let me offer an analogy to help make sense of the legal tension here, because it's a lot to wrap your head around.
Yeah, analogies are helpful here.
Think of an ambassador being sent by his government to enforce a strict international treaty regarding, say, environmental regulations.
Okay, I track with that.
He has the official credentials. He has the seal of the state. He is authorized to bring the hammer down on a foreign nation for breaking the rules and polluting the air.
Right.
But at the same time, this ambassador is openly running an illegal, smog-producing factory in his own backyard.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Right. He is actively violating that exact same treaty in his own private life. How can he have any moral or legal authority when he steps up to the podium?
He can't. He's a walking contradiction.
The foreign nation would laugh him out of the room.
Your ambassador analogy captures the legal hypocrisy spot on.
Thanks.
By yielding to domestic comfort, Moses brought a flagrant violation into his family. He disqualified himself from acting as the federal representative of a holy nation.
And the sources argue that the Lord will not overlook internal household rebellion while prosecuting external pagan empires.
Absolutely. If Moses is going to be the instrument of judgment and deliverance, his own house must be brought into strict alignment with the laws he is supposed to administer.
So this historical crisis at the Milan is not just some personal squabble with his wife.
No, not at all. It is a structural, covenantal crisis at the very dawn of national redemption.
Wait, I want to pause on the phrase federal representative, because that is a pretty dense concept for anyone who hasn't studied theology.
Yeah, let's break that down.
When the sources use that term, they're talking about someone who acts on behalf of a larger group, right?
Yes.
Like a president signing a treaty that binds the entire country, or a union leader negotiating a contract for thousands of workers.
Right, and whatever the representative does, the consequences fall on the people they represent.
Okay, so that is an accurate translation of the concept.
Yes, that is precisely it. In covenant theology, a federal representative stands as the head of a people.
Like Adam.
Yes, Adam acted as a federal representative for humanity. When he fell, the consequences of his rebellion extended to everyone under his headship.
Wow, okay.
And Moses is stepping into a role where he will act as the mediator and representative for the entire nation of Israel.
So if the federal head is compromised, the entire nation is put at risk.
Absolutely. Moses cannot represent a holy God to a captive people if he himself is living in open defiance of that God's foundational boundary marker.
Which brings us to how this event is placed in the actual literary text of Exodus.
Yeah, the placement is brilliant.
Because it does not just drop out of nowhere. Let's look at the immediate preceding verses. In Exodus chapter 4, verses 21 through 23, God gives Moses a lethal message for Pharaoh.
It's a severe warning.
He says, "Israel is my firstborn son. Let him go, or I will slay your firstborn son."
Yeah, the literary framework here establishes a massive theological concept of sonship, substitutionary judgment, and ownership.
Right.
God declares national Israel to be his corporate firstborn son. This is a claim of absolute authority.
And Pharaoh refusing to release this son will result in the retributive execution of Egypt's firstborn.
Yeah, this warning sets up the ultimate climax of the entire book, which is the 10th plague and the Passover.
Oh, wow. I see where this is going.
The placement of the lodging place confrontation immediately following this warning is highly intentional by the author. It forces the reader to hold these two realities side by side.
The juxtaposition is terrifying when you stop and really look at it.
It is.
Moses is marching toward the global superpower of Egypt to threaten their firstborn sons over covenant rebellion. He is going to walk into the throne room of Amenhotep II and deliver a death sentence.
Right.
Yet, Moses is actively harboring an uncircumcised, unprotected son in his own tent.
Yeah, the hypocrisy is staggering.
He is the mediator of the law, traveling to execute judgment on Egypt, while he himself stands in active rebellion against the very covenant he represents.
It's an untenable position.
But I have to push back a little here, or at least ask the question a modern reader might ask when looking at this. If you were reading this today, you might think, could this just be a minor administrative oversight?
Ah, right. Like he just forgot.
Yeah. Was Moses simply too busy preparing for the Exodus, packing up his life, dealing with the shock of the burning bush to handle family matters?
He had a lot on his plate.
I mean, the man just found out he has to liberate millions of people. Is God overreacting to a scheduling conflict or a delayed medical procedure?
The authors of our sources address that specific objection head-on, and they argue that in a covenantal system there are no minor oversights.
None at all.
None. The surrounding literary context of Exodus 4 uses signs of physical vulnerability to demonstrate that human flesh is weak and entirely subject to God's authority.
Oh, right, like the signs he got at the bush.
Yes. Think about the signs Moses was given at the burning bush. His staff turned into a lethal serpent. His healthy hand became physically leprous and diseased. These signs prove that God commands absolute authority over life and flesh. The author juxtaposes the global judgment on Egypt with the private judgment on Moses to show that God shows zero partiality.
So election doesn't make negligence harmless.
Spot on. Having a divine calling does not place a man above obedience. God is entirely consistent.
Yeah.
He will judge the rebellion of the Egyptian king, and he will judge the rebellion of his chosen prophet with the exact same standard of justice.
Let's get into the actual mechanics of the text. I want to look at the raw Hebrew to see how fast and violent this encounter really is.
It's intense.
Let's examine verse 24. The text says God met him and sought to put him to death.
Yeah, the Hebrew verb translated as met him is wayif shohu.
Wayif shuhu.
Right. Now, this is not a casual greeting on the road. It's not two acquaintances running into each other at the local market.
Right.
In the Hebrew Bible, this specific verb denotes a violent, aggressive collision.
Oh.
Yeah, we see the very same word used in Hosea chapter 13, verse 8, to describe a wild beast, specifically a bear robbed of her cubs, striking its unsuspecting prey.
That is a terrifying image.
It is a sudden, overwhelming assault. Combined with the verb hamito, which means to put him to death, the grammar indicates active, holy hostility.
So Yahweh manifests himself as a lethal adversary to Moses.
Precisely.
Here is where the scholarly debate gets fascinating, because a lot of modern critical scholars look at this and try to sanitize it.
Oh, absolutely. They try to soften it.
They want to write this off as a, quote, desert demon from ancient Midianite folklore.
Yeah, I've read those commentaries.
Or they suggest Moses was having a psychological hallucination brought on by the immense stress of the journey.
Right.
They try to find any possible way to avoid the conclusion that God himself was the attacker.
Well, the sources we are analyzing reject those naturalistic assertions completely.
They don't buy it.
Not for a second. The text permits no room for attempts to demythologize the account. There are no demon specters lurking in the margins of this narrative.
Yeah, the text explicitly says Yahweh sought to kill him.
God is a consuming fire. This point highlights that God's wrath is an active, personal reality directed against covenantal compromise.
Right.
The ancient writers did not view God as a safe, distant observer. They understood him as a perfectly holy judge who enforces his own laws with lethal precision.
So to attribute this to a desert demon is to strip the text of its entire theological weight.
Yes, it replaces divine justice with a campfire ghost story.
And what about Moses in this moment? I mean, the man who is going to stand toe-to-toe with Pharaoh, the man who will soon stretch out his staff and split the Red Sea, is completely incapacitated.
He is entirely passive in this scene.
He is paralyzed, likely struck with a sudden sickness or illness, completely unable to save himself. He doesn't fight back. He doesn't negotiate. He is just helpless.
That passivity is a crucial detail to notice. Moses is the object of the verb to kill him. He is helpless under the physical stroke of divine judgment. He possesses miraculous signs. He carries the physical rod of God in his hand.
But none of that helps him here.
No, none of those spiritual privileges shield him from the immediate consequences of harboring uncircumcised neglect.
Wow.
This exposes his absolute inability to secure his own life apart from covenant compliance. The great deliverer requires deliverance.
Because he cannot save himself.
Right, which foreshadows his inability to save the nation through his own merit.
So, with Moses paralyzed, the camera of the narrative pivots sharply.
It shifts right to Zipporah.
Yeah. We move to verse 25, and the action is entirely seized by his wife. Moses is down, the threat is active, and she takes immediate bloody action. She grabs a flint knife.
Right, the Hebrew term for the tool she uses is usher, referring to a sharp stone or flint.
Okay.
This detail carries significant historical weight.
Yeah.
During the transition from the Bronze Age to the Iron Age, stone implements were preserved specifically for archaic sacred rituals.
Oh, really?
Yeah, even when metal knives were available for daily tasks, flint was required for circumcision.
Interesting.
We see this later in the biblical narrative in Joshua chapter 5, where Yahweh explicitly commands Joshua to make flint knives to circumcise the wilderness generation before they enter Canaan.
So by grabbing the flint, Zipporah performs a highly formal, ritualistic correction of Moses' neglect.
Yes, she is not just performing an emergency medical procedure. She is returning to the uncompromised purity of the covenantal command. She cuts off the foreskin, the orlah, of her son.
Okay, then the text gives us this very strange phrase. It says she caused it to touch his feet.
Ah, yes.
The Hebrew is wataralo. If you are reading that in English, you might literally picture her dropping it on his boots. What is actually happening there?
Feet, or ralaim, is a classical Hebrew euphemism.
Okay, a euphemism for what?
Ancient writers frequently use the word for feet to refer to the lower extremities or the reproductive organ.
Oh, I see.
We see this euphemism used elsewhere in the Old Testament, such as when someone is described as covering their feet, which actually meant using the restroom.
Right.
So Zipporah applies the blood of the son's circumcision directly to Moses' lower extremities. This is a representative transfer.
Let's break down representative transfer. What are the actual mechanics of that action?
Okay?
How does blood moving from a son to a father change the legal standing of the father?
Well, in the ancient Near Eastern legal framework, blood represents life.
Right.
The covenant required a specific shedding of blood as a sign of inclusion and obedience. Moses was under a sentence of death because of his disobedience regarding this exact sign.
Yeah.
By touching Moses with the bloody foreskin, Zipporah is executing a symbolic legal incorporation.
So she's basically making things right legally.
Yes. She is taking the proof of obedience, the blood of the son, and applying it to the offending party. The blood of the son legally brings the failing head of the household back into the protective boundary of the covenant.
So the penalty has been paid.
The requirement has been met. The blood provides a shield against the executioner.
And while she does this, she makes an intense declaration.
She does.
She says, "Surely you are a bridegroom of blood to me." The Hebrew phrase is fathan damim.
Right.
Some modern commentators read that and assume it sounds like a pagan marital rite from her Midianite background.
Well, the sources argue against interpreting this as a pagan rite.
They do.
Yeah, they present it as a formal legal proclamation. Moses was legally dead under the divine sentence. The wrath of God was actively upon him.
Right.
Through the life-saving application of circumcision blood, he is effectively reborn or remarried to his family and to the covenant assembly. He is a bridegroom bought back from the jaws of death by the blood of his son.
That makes so much sense.
The phrase identifies the mediator's rescue through a bloody legal satisfaction. She is declaring his restored status. He was lost to the judgment of God, and now he is returned to her through blood.
Which leads right to the judicial release in verse 26. The text says, "So he let him alone," or where rep.
Yes. The attack stops just as suddenly as it started.
The divine wrath subsides immediately. This resolution is vital for understanding the nature of God's justice.
How so?
It demonstrates that God's holy justice is not arbitrary, chaotic, or vindictive. It is a precise judicial reality.
Okay.
The wrath of God is fully satisfied when the requirements of the covenant are met. The shedding of the son's blood and its specific application function as a forensic propitiation.
Let's pause on forensic propitiation for a second. If we are translating that into everyday English, we are talking about a legal settlement, right?
Basically, yes.
Like forensic means it pertains to a court of law, and propitiation means satisfying a debt or turning away anger.
Spot on.
So it is like a massive fine being completely wiped clean in a courtroom because someone else walked in and paid the exact amount required by the judge.
That is an excellent way to conceptualize it. The judge's anger is not irrational. It is based entirely on the violation of the law.
Right, there are rules. Once the fine is paid, the judge has no legal grounds to continue the prosecution. In this narrative, the application of the blood paid the covenantal fine.
Wow.
It turned away the active execution of the Lord and restored the mediator to his calling. God's justice was satisfied, so the assault ended.
So if we zoom out from this dusty caravanserai, we transition from the historical rescue of Moses into the broader typology of salvation.
This is where it gets really beautiful.
The sources draw a massive line from this event to the rest of the biblical narrative.
Me too.
Because if Moses, the great deliverer, could not even save himself from the wrath of God, how on earth could he save the entire nation of Israel?
Exactly. I mean, the narrative exposes the absolute insufficiency of the typical mediator.
And when we say typical.
When we say typical, we mean Moses is a type or a foreshadowing of something greater.
Right.
But as a type, he is inherently flawed. Moses is sin-stained. He is paralyzed and helpless. He cannot save his own life, let alone the lives of millions of Israelites facing the Egyptian army. His rescue relies entirely on the substitutionary blood provided by another. This typological failure points directly to the necessity of a better mediator.
Which is the whole point of the broader biblical story.
Yes. The system demands someone who is completely free from sin, someone who does not need to be rescued, and someone who perfectly satisfies every demand of the law without compromise.
And the sources connect this directly to Jesus Christ.
Absolutely.
Think about the contrast. Moses compromised on the covenant sign for the sake of his wife's preferences.
Right, to keep the peace at home.
Yeah. But Christ submitted flawlessly to the covenant laws from the very beginning.
You did.
The Gospel of Luke, chapter 2, verse 21, specifically records that Jesus underwent physical circumcision on the 8th day.
Yeah?
He yielded perfectly to the revealed will of God from infancy. There was no domestic compromise, no delayed obedience.
Christ executed perfect, active obedience to the law. He fulfilled every requirement that Moses failed to uphold. But to secure eternal redemption for others, he had to undergo an ultimate cutting off.
Yeah.
Christ did not offer an animal or a son's foreskin to appease the wrath of God.
Oh.
He stood as the supreme mediator on the cross. He endured the unmitigated execution of divine justice. He is the true bridegroom of blood, purchasing the church with his own life-giving sacrifice.
Wow.
While Moses was spared by the physical blood of his son's circumcision, the sources argue that humanity is spared from eternal wrath because the true firstborn Son of God shed his own blood as a propitiation.
He paid the ultimate legal fine.
He did.
This brings the massive theological weight of this ancient event directly into our contemporary lives.
It really does. It's not just ancient history.
No, we are looking at modern applications now, and the sources use this text to shatter comfortable religion.
They really take aim at pragmatic ministries.
Yeah, the authors use this text to dismantle the modern seeker-sensitive movement.
And you see this everywhere today. The prevailing evangelical trend often seeks to construct a welcoming environment by avoiding any mention of divine wrath, judgment, or the absolute holiness of God.
Right. Keep it light.
Keep it light, yeah.
Right.
The goal is to make the divine approachable and non-threatening. But this text presents a God who prioritizes absolute holiness over administrative efficiency or numerical metrics.
Yeah, I mean, God was willing to strike down the central leader of the Exodus movement over a neglected ritual sign.
Think about the gravity of that.
That's massive.
He is actively, personally hostile to covenantal neglect. The sources argue that we must recover a trembling reverence.
Yeah.
The text indicates that God will not tolerate a sanitized, passive deity tailored for human convenience.
And then there's the crisis of domestic passivity.
Oh, this is a huge one.
Think about why Moses was in this situation in the first place.
Yeah.
He compromised for the sake of domestic peace. He did not want to upset his wife, so he ignored God's clear command. If you look at modern culture, we see fathers routinely delegating the spiritual alignment of their children to secular institutions, schools, or casual church youth programs.
Right, outsourcing discipleship?
Well, I mean, yes, outsourcing it. They want the public platform. They want to be respected in their careers. but they neglect the private household.
The text provides a severe warning regarding household leadership.
It does.
God holds the head of the household directly accountable. Public orthodoxy, or doing great things in your career or public ministry, cannot compensate for private household negligence.
No, it can't.
True leadership requires the visible correction of household neglect, regardless of the cultural discomfort it may cause. The covenant Lord lays claim not only to Moses' mouth before Pharaoh, but also to Moses' house on the road.
You cannot separate public calling from private obedience.
Hold on.
The sources also use this text to refute specific theological errors. Let's run through them, because this is where the theology gets intensely practical.
Okay, let's do it.
First, they address Arminianism and Roman Catholicism. Now, without getting bogged down in centuries of debate, both of these systems, to varying degrees, rely on human cooperation or personal merit to participate in salvation or escape the wrath of God.
Right. There's a synergy there.
Yeah.
Well, the authors point out that the text of Exodus directly contradicts a system based on human performance.
How so?
When the wrath of God was revealed against Moses, human performance was completely paralyzed. Moses did nothing to earn his rescue.
Oh, right. Because he was incapacitated.
Yes. He could not cooperate. He could not offer a defense. Deliverance in this narrative is entirely passive for the one being saved.
It rests solely upon the substitutionary blood of a representative.
Yes. The sources argue that we are saved by the imputed righteousness and substitutionary blood of Jesus Christ, received through faith alone, not by our own performance or sacramental cooperation.
So Moses was a passive recipient of grace through blood, just as believers are passive recipients of justification.
That's the core argument.
And then there is the opposite error, antinomianism.
Yes. The other extreme.
This is the belief that because we are saved by grace, the moral commands of the law no longer bind the believer. It is the idea that grace gives you a free pass on obedience.
Well, the text proves that God enforces his commands strictly. Grace provides the remedy through blood, but it does not erase the law.
God did not say, oh, Moses is my chosen guy, so I will just overlook this rule.
No, he enforced the rule with lethal intent.
Wow.
The moral law remains our unchangeable rule of life. The sources point out that believers must examine their lives and expose hidden areas of neglect, fleeing to the cleansing blood of Christ while actively pursuing obedience.
Right.
Grace covers the failure, but it does not validate the rebellion.
I think about delayed obedience, like treating a smoke alarm like a snooze button.
Okay, I like that.
Imagine you are asleep and the alarm starts screaming. The house is on fire. You reach up, pull the battery out of the detector, roll over and say, I will deal with the fire later. I just need 5 more minutes of sleep. The fire is not that big yet.
That's a great illustration.
Right. The sources make it abundantly clear. Postponed obedience is actual rebellion dressed up in respectable clothing. You cannot snooze the commands of God.
That is a precise analogy. The neglected sign in Moses' life became the covenant danger manifested. He tried to hit the snooze button on circumcision, and the fire almost consumed him.
So true.
The sources apply this principle to the sacraments of the church today.
Okay, let's talk about that.
While Christians do not replicate the physical rite of circumcision, ordinances like baptism and the Lord's Supper are not empty options.
Right.
You cannot just skip them because they feel inconvenient. At the same time, they are not magical acts that save you regardless of your heart. They require inward faith joined to outward submission.
Because God's appointed ordinances matter.
Yes, because God's word matters.
We have covered a massive amount of ground today, moving from the political landscape of ancient Egypt to the theological debates of the modern era.
It's been a ride.
To summarize the findings of our sources, God's redemptive acts never bypass his holiness. The men sent to announce the death of Egypt's firstborn had to reckon with his own uncircumcised son.
Yeah.
Moses had to be broken, incapacitated, and rescued by the blood of a substitute before he could ever stand before Pharaoh. The God who saves his people is the exact same God who strictly sanctifies his servants.
Divine discipline is often a severe mercy when it arrests a man before a greater disaster occurs. The Lord interrupted the journey with a lethal threat so that the servant could be properly aligned to continue rightly.
I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder on your own.
Mm-hmm.
We talked extensively about the Malon, that isolated, primitive caravanserai on the road to Egypt.
The lodging place.
Yeah, the lodging place. Think about the physical spaces of transition in your own life. Think about airports, hotels, a temporary apartment between moves, or even the quiet commute home in your car.
Those in-between moments.
Right. We often view these as dead time. We see them as functional stops between our real destinations. But what if these isolated in-between spaces are the exact theaters where your most severe and revealing spiritual confrontations are meant to happen?
Oh, yeah.
When you are stripped of your normal routine, your public audience, and your comfortable titles, what unaddressed compromises are waiting for you in the quiet of the lodging place?